So I'm going to go over the classwork assignments that we're completing this 6 weeks. You will have about a week to complete each one, but it's best if you turn it in when it is assigned. As you see here, this is in red, which means that it is due immediately. It may not be graded immediately, but it is due immediately. You must submit it immediately because it may become a 0 any day and then you will not be able to get it done. So each week we're going to have a movie sequence that we will watch and you will write about. And then we will have a bonus at the end, which I will not discuss, but you will complete. So we have already started 1 and 2. But if you have not completed it, you may have a discussion. You may watch this video at any time and just scroll over to the current activity we are on to get further explanations. In this video, which is either available here or here, one of these two will work. You don't have to watch both. We have an example of a long take. That is a scene or an act. In this case, the entire act is shot continuously. And when you add a submission and write, what I want you to look at and write about is how does the continuous nature affect the drama and how does it help build the tension of the scene? Okay? And from that, you're going to write another paragraph discussing how that might have impacted why the director chose to create a continuous take. Because even with modern technology, a continuous take is more difficult and more time-consuming and more prone to error and retakes than a short take that you just snapped together. Everyone there has to be in perfect sync. Everything needs to work. It's a little bit easier now because you're not doing it on film and you can do a little bit in post. And then you're going to talk about how this might impact your film. How you might use this technique in the film you are going to make. Because of course we're at the beginning of the movie we're going to make at this point. And the question is how can you use this, particularly for your Act 2 and Act 3, in order to complete what you need to complete. So I need 3 paragraphs according to the instructions. And you need to submit. Okay? Next activity. Again, I have multiple choices. If one of them doesn't work, you have 1, 2, 3 choices. You have 1 video, 2 video, 3 choices of the video. 3 places you can try and access it. If you can't access it in Chrome, try Edge. If you can't do it on either on your school PC, log on to the site with your phone or whatever and see if you can watch it there. Okay. This is a classic from the same period that we are looking at, the movie that we're looking at, La Joie de Bicicleta. This is an opening to a movie. It is much more complex and much more dangerous. So the point of this is not to try and think about how you can make something like this work in your film. It is created by a very skilled director who was coming back to the Americas and wanted to show off. I am showing it to you because I am trying to show you the power that can be expressed when you do a single continuous take to introduce everyone to the characters and the action and the plot. But what I'm asking you to do here is I'm asking you to pay attention and just tell me what the power is here. Because in this short little take, you get a lot of information. Okay? In this introduction to the film, with a long take, you get a lot of information. You get to see the characters, who the main characters are. You get introduced to some characters that don't exist in the movie. In the second paragraph, you can talk about, well, what do we know about the film? Just by watching this little bit. What is the director, what is the writer telling us about what we're going to see? And this is important because in the 1950s or whatever, people were just starting to go to movies. And we didn't have TV. So there weren't a lot of tropes developed. There was a lot more information that had to be included in a movie, and they couldn't just drop little hints, and we've seen so many movies we know exactly what it is. In the third paragraph, describe how is this different from what we would see today. Not in terms that it looks old or anything stupid like that, but actually look at what the characters are doing. Look at how they're interacting with each other. Look at what they're talking about. So again, we add submission. We write our paragraphs. We save. And you will remember to submit, because until you submit, I cannot grade. And then we go to the next activity. This sequence is really nice. This is what you actually might think about. And I want you to think about how this, something like this, something simple, something very powerful, could be your Act 1. Your Act 1 should not look like this because this is a longer movie. And so they can do less in the first scene because they have a couple hours to play with. You only have 5 minutes. But I want you to watch this. And at this point, I haven't put down any alternate links, but if there are alternate links, you'll see them. And I want you to talk about the location. And this is a horror film. So I want you to very specifically think about how does this set the viewer up for a horror film. And again, remember, this is a trope now. And we all understand what is going on. But just think about it from the point of view of when we didn't understand automatically what this was. Explain how the scene builds attention. How the scene builds attention by just very simply having an everyday action. It really is very fascinating. And then the third one, think about the child that is used. Is this realistic today? Would we use a different child? Would it be older, younger? Give me some indication of how this is a reflection of the time that this was made, which was, I suppose, 40 years ago. We're now out of the classic period, solidly into modern movies. And just give me an idea what's going on. And again, okay, next activity. This is just kind of stuck in here because I want you to see an entire skit. And really, this has 3 acts in it, filmed all at once. So this is more or less the film you are going to make. It doesn't have to be all in one set because this is a skit for a TV show. And skits for TV shows back then were set in one location. They were like plays. We're not going to make a play. But the idea is this has an introduction. It has a part where she is teaching. And then it has some action, okay? So we're going to watch this thinking, how is this an example of what we might do? And again, I want you to have different locations. I don't want you to be filming in the same place. But in terms of story structure, this is not a bad example of what you might do. It is also twice as long, so this is a long one, and we're going to have a bit more time to do it as your film. So, tell me how a continuous shot makes this more realistic. And keep an eye out because there's actually a real-time event that goes on in here that if this was an edited film, we would never see. And look how she deals with it. It really is wonderful. This is really you're watching a one of the most skilled actors, and it is just like a lesson in how to do this. It's a masterclass. In the second paragraph, again, this is an example of what your movie might be like. So you're going to talk about how it progresses. And one way it progresses is that the actors change locations and change the scenery, change the set, which indicates that we're at a new scene. Again, this is an entire skit. It's 11 minutes instead of 4 to 5 minutes like yours. But I want you to look at the structure And the instructions may change on this a bit because I always change the instructions as I read them, and I think I could make them clearer. But you're going to be focusing on the structure of the setup and think how you can use this in your short film to create your 4 acts. And then again, one of the things that we are doing is looking at how cultural norms have hopefully improved, at least changed, hopefully becomes more safe for everyone. So think about how the interaction between the adult, the teacher, and the mostly younger kids, students, progresses, and how it might progress differently if we were doing this today. The next sequence you're going to be working on is another example of an Act 1, an opening, an Act 1. A situation where we're being introduced to the characters. In this case, we're not being introduced to the plot. We're being introduced to the characters. And here, by the time you get to this point, you should have your movie pretty much made. So I'm including this just to give you more ideas of how to start, if you're not quite sure how to start your filming. And I want you to notice, because this what I like about this is that it really quickly demonstrates and indicates to you what is the main purpose, what is the main trait of each character. So in the first paragraph, I want you to tell me that. I want you to watch this and see how interesting it is that the writer, in this case Joss Whedon, who of course has done a lot of stuff that you've seen. He's done many of the comic book movies. Introduces you to every character very efficiently. And not only that, but he pretty much indicates the relationship between the main character and the other characters. So you pretty much know who's friendly, who's a little bit antagonistic, who's kind of neutral. And I want you to tell me what you see and how you see it. And you'll give me specific examples to justify your assertions, as it says here. We're moving away from how this is different directly, and we're just talking about it implicitly. Because one of the things that we have is we have non-human inanimate characters more present and more central. And if you're trying to figure out something for your movie, this could be useful to you. If you're having trouble figuring out how your story is going to move along, the fact of the matter is that, as in many stories, the inanimate object is called a plot device. And a plot device is simply something that allows the plot to move along. It's basically something stuck in there to allow you to actually create a story. Like in the old movies where the Indians were defending their land. You know? The main characters in those movies were the people invading the land. And it was always discussed, why do the people invading the land always get away? Well, because it's the plot device. If they did not get away, then, and if their wagons did not protect them from the people defending their land, then we wouldn't have a story. Okay. At this point in the 6 weeks where we're doing movie sequence 6, you should have your movie pretty much done, or at least your story done. You should have a really good idea of the images that you're going to complete. And so these last 2 movie sequences, I'm just sticking in so that you have an understanding of what can actually be done with the filming techniques and real-time filming. What this director did, and I'm going to change the instructions a little bit. What this director did was film 4 movies focused on 4 different characters continuously, or almost continuously. And then he put those 4 movies together into a single movie. And so what you're doing is you're following the story of each character. And when those characters interact with each other, the footage interacts. And it really is a nice effect. So this is a very experimental film, and basically I just want you to think about, why would a person think that this was a really interesting way to present a movie? Because the audience has to process 4 movies at once. So how is it that we're ready to do this? One of the effects of this is that you're seeing characters from different characters' point of view. How does this affect you as someone watching the movie? How does it make the movie more accessible or more realistic? And now just generally, can you grasp this film? Do you think that this is an effective way to make a film? Beyond the technical difficulty, is there some reason why such a film isn't made more often? Again, by this point, you should have your film basically done. So I'm basically just showing you this as an extreme example of how the technique we're discussing can be used. The bonus activity is another example of this by the same director. Basically, we are filming a party. The party is being filmed continuously. Actors are engaged throughout the Russian mansion. And by this time, the 6 weeks is pretty much over. You'll just be putting your finishing touches on your movie. So I include this as just another extreme example of the technique. Remember, you can scroll through this video to whatever activity we're on to see what it is that I'm asking you to do. Please read the instructions and use the instructions more than you will use what I say. And also remember that Chrome and Safari will translate websites. So if you need another language, load this on your phone. And Chrome has an auto translation, and Safari has a manual translation like this. Okay, thank you.